As you may know, self-regulation and mindfulness plays a massive part in our wiggleBums and wiggleKids classes. Now, one of the techniques we use is called flipping your lid. Simply because when you have this visual and you can see what happens in the brain and understand what's happening in the body, it can help us gain conscious control over our behavior, and it can help us bring us back into right relationship with ourselves. It can change what the brain does, and it can change those negative patterns of behavior. Okay, so this is the visual. So if you take your hand here, you can imagine that this is your spinal cord coming up. And this is kind of represented by the wrist. Then you have the skull and the brain stem in the center of your palm. And then when you bring your thumb across, you can see that this is like the limbic area. Yeah. So this all works together to regulate your emotions, those kind of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses that we can have in stressful situations. So this is below the cortex, the limbic and brain stem areas. And the cortex itself is this higher part of the brain that this bit here allows you to perceive the outside world. It's when it's in right relation and it's all working well and you feel peaceful, you're resourceful, you can access your reasoning, you can think clearly, all your neurons are firing, and you're working in right relationship with yourself. Now, this frontmost part of the brain is right behind your forehead. Yeah, and that kind of it kind of regulates the subcortical, limbic and brainstem areas. Okay, so this regulation here is like really important, because sometimes we've got like all sorts of things happening in our lives all at the same time. You know, you're cooking dinner, the phone's ringing, a child just spills their drink all over the table, and some other child comes in or your partner comes in and presses the emotional button, and before we know it, we flipped our lids. Yeah. So rather than being kind of tuned in, connected, patient, resourceful, flexible, we can lose all that immediately and we can flip our lids and it all comes spilling out. Yeah, we can even lose moral reasoning, and we can act in ways that are quite terrifying to others, you know, and it can be really quite upsetting to ourselves when we flip our lids. Yeah, it only takes like 3 things really for the brain to kind of crash. And yeah, so, you know, as parents, as mums, as dads, we can be trying to do a lot of things, and then all of a sudden we flipped our lids and we kind of revert back to kind of negative behavioral patterns ourselves. But by understanding what's happening internally, you can bring yourself back, you can self-regulate those emotions, and then you can draw a line under what's just happened, and then you can make amends with your child, or your children, or your partner, or yourself, and you can move forward in life. So this is something that we share with the children, and it's something that you can share with the children as well. What happens when we flip our lids? This is when we're really resourceful and we can access our thinking and our reasoning. And, you know, life's cool. And then all this stuff, we can be exhausted and tired and overwrought. And then before we know it, we flipped our lids. But we can override that point. Yeah, where we're about to flip our lids, we can sense it, and we teach the children and the parents in our positive parenting classes that little bit of time just before we flip our lids, what we can do to help ourselves in this moment. So we can do like the 4-6 breath, the golden thread breath. We can breathe in through our nose for 4 and out for 6. You know, and that will really help bring our nervous system back into right relationship. We can also play with all the different kinds of breath techniques that we teach our children. We can use the elephant breath, for example, or the bunny breath. We can simply take some time out from the situation that we're in. We can recognize that we are about to just flip our lids, and we can just take some time out. We can do some grounding. We can do some anchoring, which is a little bit of NLP. And we can also do some tapping. And tapping is wonderful to kind of bring ourselves back into right relation. This is called stealth tapping, where we are literally just tapping on the meridians on the top of our fingers and thumbs. And you can do that in Tesco's, in the queue in Tesco's. No one needs to know that you're doing it, just to bring yourself back into right relationship. And we can bring that lid all the way down. So I've shown my children this, and we've had children come up and say, you know, I'm about to flip my lid, and they tell me what they need, you know. And so just by naming it, we're taming it. And that's the power of using this hand model. This is Dr. Siegal's hand model. And yeah, it's a very powerful model that we can use for not just for our children, but for ourselves. And it helps us make sense and kind of navigate the trickier times in life. So when we feel those emotions rising all the way up, and we're just about to flip our lid, or even if we have flipped our lid, you know, we can bring ourselves back into right relationship, breathing in for 4, out for 6, or just, you know, taking some time out, or realizing that you haven't even given yourself a cup of tea. You know, I know what it's like, hectic parent, you can go from one job to another and not even actually have had a drink for quite a few hours. So just giving yourself that little bit of time and space. But it's a lovely visual, and the children do love it. And it's that making sense of just about to flip your lid. Okay, so thank you for listening. See you soon.